everyone. Welcome to This Week in Caribbean Tech. Of course, it's the podcast where we give you the top Caribbean tech news that's on our mind, that's pretty much popping this week. And we serve it up with you with some unfiltered insights, some of our special quotes, because the people and businesses that are driving the Caribbean digital economy, very interesting. And of course, when we pair that, which is what is happening, with what is happening globally, it can make for a very interesting podcast most times. Plus, of course, we'll give you a heads up in terms of the upcoming tech and business events we believe that you should add to your calendar. If you're new here, my name is Ingrid Riley. I'm the founder of SiliconCaribe. And with me this week, not in his Trini colors,
hey,
co-host.
I'm Daniel Smith, co-host of This Week in Caribbean Tech and the founder of Keepingly.
And guess what now? We have, of course, a guest with us because, you know, a lot of things are popping and we need to get people who are on the ground and plugged into things joining us. So we'll introduce him shortly, because I have to tell you, in this episode, we're going to be talking about the FTX scandal out of Bahamas and how will be affecting the crypto culture and the crypto businesses in the Caribbean. We're also going to be talking about digital remittances with NCB out of Jamaica. Next up on our agenda is the Caribbean woman with the largest LinkedIn follower audience. Do you know who that is? And then we're going to be telling you about Caribbean businesses and the metaverse opportunity. In addition to, is the Future of Caribbean Money event coming back? And when is it? And what is it going to be all about? So right at the top of the show, I'm going to bring in our guest. His name is Leroy Forbes, the man who wrote about FTX. And I begged him to let me publish it on SiliconCaribe. And so, yeah, so Leroy, I said, God, dude, we've got to talk about this FTX scandal. But more importantly, what does it mean for the Caribbean? We've been seeing a lot of things popping up, but let us start from the beginning. Leroy, welcome to This Week in Caribbean Tech.
Thank you both for having me on the show. As you said, we've been talking, we've been back and forth for a while now, but we finally actually got to sit down for this. So I appreciate y'all having me on to talk about this complete train wreck that we've been watching slowly happen. Is this the slowest train wreck I ever seen in my 30 years of life?
Listen to me.
It ain't finished.
It's not finished yet at all. Now let's start with it. Let's tell the people what we're talking about. It started around a week ago, where FTX, which was in fact the third largest crypto exchange in the world, with a valuation of around $34 billion US. It was founded by 29-year-old American dude named Sam Bankman-Fried. They moved their headquarters to the Bahamas, Nassau, Bahamas, a year ago. Because of course, Bahamas has very pro-crypto friendly legal framework and environment there. Fast forward to a week ago, all things went to shit.
Completely.
Now, Leroy, what's been your synopsis in terms of what exactly happened? Tell the people.
So what exactly happened was, the short version of it is a young fella of a certain persuasion came through with some nice fancy words, a whole lot of money, and convinced everyone to trust him. And people seeing that just might not be the best idea when you really ain't vetting the people. And I'm not saying it's the consumer's fault or it's people's fault for all of this stuff happening, but I think the degree of trust that he's garnered in the super short amount of time that he's been in the space has been alarming from the jump. From my earlier coverage, you had mentioned the article I wrote about FTX coming to the Bahamas. I was skeptical from the jump.
Mm.
Right from the get-go. I said, is this going to be a good thing? Are we sure this is what we want to do? I understand the possibilities. I understand the opportunities that are being presented with this new avenue, with the DARE Act, with the FCSP, with this new infrastructure being set up for this new industry. I completely understood the potential upside, but at what cost when you're moving this rapidly into something that in the DARE Act itself, if you read through the DARE Act, they highlight that, look, this is going to be evolving because we still learning about it. We still trying to figure it out. It's in the act itself.
Yeah.
So I think diving so quickly into this, like we want to be the first one out the gate with it. You know, we was proud of, you know, first fully launched, fully piloted CBDC in the world, the first fully regulated infrastructure set up for a regulatory framework for the crypto or the digital assets, because they don't want to say crypto. But yeah, I mean, when you go fast, you break things, and they break. FTX come through and break in a lot of windows in this house.
Yeah, pretty much what in essence what has happened is that they have that $34 billion valuation is now zero.
Gone. It's negative. It's negative.
It's
Exactly.
negative now. They owe a lot of people money. So in other words, it started in 2019, and here, you know, 3 years later, they had a liquidity crunch. They could not get raise money in time to back up the moves that they were making in the crypto market. Somebody who had shares in them, and somebody meaning the owner of Binance.com, which is the second largest. No, it's the second largest crypto exchange in the world, which is run by this Chinese dude called CZ. CZ. So he said, you know what, he doesn't like what he's hearing and seeing, so he's going to sell his shares, or an FTT token, whatever they call it. And so that seemed to have alerted people to how illiquid FTX was, and it sent the crypto market on a tailspin. It went from, you know, like Bitcoin and ETH dropped a good double digits without question. Bitcoin went to 16, no, down to 15, which is the lowest it has been in over 2 years. ETH dropped down to 1,200, up from a high of 1,800 or 1,600. It was the last couple of months. And CZ decides that he's going to, you know, help out by trying to take them over, take over FTX. He went in, he probably looks at the books and go, oh, hell no.
Yeah, no. hey,
so
let me...
that led to a whole bunch of other things that people were like, well, what exactly is happening in FTX? And they realized that the emperor had no clothes.
Let me throw a little extra spice in the pot, though.
Woo!
You think, because all of this, like you said, was triggered by, it was a simple tweet. It was just one tweet that CZ put out.
Yes.
It started the domino effect. You think that was intentional?
You know, I'm going to come to that, because I'm going to come to that in a bit. I'm going to come to that a bit. But what has happened over this time is that investors, Sequoia Capital, which is one of the best venture capital firms in the world, who actually invested in FTX, and then FTX was making too much money, it reinvested back into Sequoia to the tune of $500 million. They started just, okay, this is something is going wrong. They've started writing off their investments, and so all of the venture capital firms, the pension funds, the education funds, the high net worth individual and investors realized that their money was gone. And they started doing a lot of investigations as to what exactly happened. And it basically boils down to that FTX seemed to have been a pyramid scheme. You take from Paul to pay Peter, and you're hoping that whatever happens in between that righteous cycle, it can go on and on until somebody raises their hand and say, hey, give me some of this. And then you can't. That's basically what it is in a nutshell. So a lot of VC firms are now making a lot of noise saying that, oh, girl, they did not do enough due diligence, or is he really the boy genius that we had said that he was? And so right now, things are still unraveling in terms of the level of exposure or level of the contagion. So in other words, all the people investors and businesses that were plugged into the FTX matrix, because I believe FTX had at least 30 companies registered around the world doing different things in its ecosystem. All of those entities are now bankrupt. All of the startups and investors who were in any way, shape, or form exposed to FTX, their thing pretty much a big old goose egg right now. And so people are still talking about the level of what is clearly looking at like fraud, basically small market. Yes, the market was up to 3 trillion, 3 trillion US dollars, and that was considered to be small. And so it wouldn't, so the FTX basically flaming out would not fully impact the economy, but it definitely will raise the hairs up on people's chest in terms of the fact that their investments have gone to zero. Daniel, you're very quiet because you were also not very Mr. Crypto, because you were like, no, wait until y'all regulate.
Figure it out. So I know you and I went back and forth when the crap of this started hitting the fan. And as the more I read about Sam Brinkman, Fred, and the more I read about FTX, the more it shows just to me, I look at it from a different lens, as the lens of, hey, I'm a founder who's trying to raise. So understand, all the pattern matching, or the, I think Forbes, one of them over the weekend had an article talking about how he was a model company, or he was building this model company, and so much VCs had put so much faith in him. And I'm like, yo, this is a 30-year-old dude. And then I think what compounded it for me on the weekend was also watching Chamat Pramaterial talking about, hey, when they sent this whole document, they sent back a 2-page document saying, hey, we need you to put a board in place, we need you to do certain things. They sent back a big go F you. And I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
So we've created these kind of monsters in terms of, hey, these guys are so big, and these guys are collapsing systems. And we are at this stage in history, which is why my biggest takeaway always is we need regulation to protect consumers. Because even I was having this argument with a friend of mine, I was saying, hey, here's what, if you put 250,000 US in the bank here, at least you're getting that back. That is the consumer protection. When you put the money in crypto, it's all gone to zero. What does anybody who is invested in the FTT get back from their investment? Not a dollar.
Yeah.
And
that's why, as a market being early, they're always prefacing people saying, if you go into the crypto market only by putting in what you can
afford to lose. Right.
That's it. That clearly was that the case, that was that the headspace that the VCs were in and the pension funds were in, or were they caught up in the narrative of this boy genius, who seemed to have found this wonderful great arbitrage of buying crypto and whatever it is in another part of the country at one price and then selling it at a higher price in another, and they saw how much money could be made because of the volume of that was in the marketplace. I mean, you think it was the boy genius, let me put it this way, the white boy genius narrative that caught the old white men with money and their, what I call FOMO, their fear of missing out. Leroy, what do you think?
I honestly think it's a little bit of both. I think the young white boy genius definitely played a huge part in a lot of the progression that they got, a lot of the rapid incline of the company, the rapid rise of FTX and SBF as his status as the world's most generous billionaire, billionaire philanthropist, young genius, coming out, buying this, buying that. So that definitely was a part of it. But at the same time, knowing how big players play, knowing how the whales play, there's some degree of knowledge. They're not completely ignorant. They weren't completely just, a smile and some quick words and a lot of large vocabulary. They weren't just won over by that. they had to know something along the way. And that's not saying that they were aware of fraud or they were aware of the Ponzi dynamic that basically made up the infrastructure of the company. But they knew, look, whatever it is you're doing, you're gonna make money. I want peace. The infrastructure is set up. The governments are already on board. We already have the existing systems that we know work from traditional finance, from traditional banking, from traditional VC and fundraising. And we just got to bring it over here. And you could quadruple that, you could quintuple that in a year. Whereas with traditional, you're looking at single digit gains, but here you making double digits in a month, in 2 months. They jump on board. They don't have to hear the whole story. They don't have to hear it. So and once one on board, all on board.
Correct. You seem to have that sort of a multiplier effect. Money's being made here. We're gonna go over there because again, that's the game of a VC. They wanna have the 10x, 20x, 50x that they're used to. So if this is a market that can give to them, that they're gonna put their attention and their money behind it. Okay, so we've established what has basically happened, and it's still unraveling in the United States. People are being chased, maybe, be brought in from Bahamas and extradited from the Bahamas to the States. People are saying, oh, well, this is criminal. There's highly likely that somebody or some people are going to be going to jail. But the economy is going to still retain. Crypto is going to still go on. But this was simply a really big, bad actor who got caught, with no emperor, with the emperor had no clothes, even though one of the things that really caught me was that when things were shut down and there's no money and, FTX was going to zero, they had $600 million on their exchange that was hacked and sucked out by whoever it is that was local in Bahamas. Why was it then? I don't know if you know anything around this. Why was it then that nobody else could have pulled out their money anywhere else around the world, but in Bahamas, based on the report that I saw, based on their local laws, but people who are native to Bahamas could actually have access to their funds, and $600 million was reportedly hacked. Where did that go, Leroy? Where do you think it went?
They're going in someone's pocket. They're going right in someone's pocket. So the same way that SBF, there were the reports that SBF had some backdoor initially set up in FTX itself, where he was able to pull funds and funnel them over to Alameda without any red flags or any alerts going off. So even external auditors coming in wouldn't be able to see these funds moving and everything would look fine.
Yeah.
So knowing this, we're supposed to believe that this is just a random hack that happened to happen at the time that everything's going down the drain. Everyone's panicking. No one knows what's going on. Everyone's losing money. And this hacker just happened to, let me get a quick 600 mil out here and I gone. Come on. Yeah. Like there's something fishy. There's something not right with the story in and of itself. It has to be either someone directly or indirectly tied to any of the heads of the entire company, of the corporation. There has to be someone that knows the ins and outs. The same way there was that backdoor for the funneling of the funds. It's easy to make something look like a hack if you know the system. It's super easy. And you're telling me now with these funds draining out, FTX suddenly has such lackluster security that a hacker just happens to, your security doesn't just drop when you lose money. Like I understand you don't have the funds to upkeep daily operations, but if your security was set up, your digital security, your cyber security was set up to where this was not just one of the top, but one of the safest exchanges on the planet, that don't just go out the window in a day, a couple of days, in a week. So either your exchange was always trash, or someone with access was able to get in, move some numbers, type in some code, and make it look like it was a forced entry.
Yeah.
Which one sound more plausible?
Well, we're going to stay far from any lawyers on this show. So,
but Leroy, Ingrid, just to get, well, Leroy is, I understand what Leroy is saying, but what I wanted to understand, even though from a country perspective, What is the feeling in the Bahamas currently at this stage around FTX?
Well, I'm currently living in the US. I do keep in contact with people back home just to get a general feel for the climate and everything that's going on. So I try to keep constant tabs to keep up to date on what's happening. And for the average person, this doesn't change much.
Right.
Because the average person isn't even aware of what's going on. This doesn't affect them. Most people aren't even involved in the space. But for the ones that are in the space, for the ones that are heavily invested into some of these centralized exchanges, some of these newer companies that are establishing themselves, because previously people had to do all of their stuff internationally. So this was the first year that the opportunity was presented for everyone to invest here in the Bahamas and still have access to this space. So there's definitely a knock to that confidence for the people that are actively in the space, that have been doing this stuff, that have been in for 1, 2, 3, 4 years. Seeing all of this play out in just the first year of operations was a huge hit to consumer confidence. Now, it's not dissuading too many people. The majority of people that I found that seem to are taken aback completely and wary of the space as a whole tend to be some of the newer people into the space. Some of the people who entered probably within the last year and a half. This is a bad taste because this is a super bear market. This isn't just a bear. So there's definitely a knock to that confidence. But luckily, from the conversations that I've had, it doesn't seem like people are completely turned off from the space. More wary for sure, and definitely more hesitant, but still not completely turned off.
Well, what we're seeing here out of the Bahamas is that the Bahamas law enforcement is investigating criminal misconduct at FTX. Of course, the crypto exchange that was once valued at 32 billion, and they're now suing for bankruptcy. What they're basically saying is the Bahamas police is investigating Sam Bankman-Fried's beleaguered and now bankrupt crypto exchange FTX for criminal misconduct. And its financial crime investigation branch is working closely with the Bahamas securities regulator in the investigation. And so, of course, they have frozen assets there, and he's under investigation. But, before I get into the truly Caribbean part of things, the crypto is quite new. Blockchain, fintech, well, not blockchain, and basically what I call it's sexy baby, which is crypto. It's been around for the past I think 13 years now. I think that was when Satoshi Nakamoto was 13 years old. And it is meant to be, the narrative is about decentralization, holding, have ownership over your ways of making money, having ownership over your digital identity. And there are numerous ways in which crypto can solve different problems in different areas. So I think you're right that there may be caution, but I think more importantly for me, I hope that there's a raised awareness about these exchanges, how to navigate these exchanges, how to be better at investing, how to be better at thinking about what to invest in and thinking about medium to long term versus trying to game the system like some people do it with FX trading, especially if you don't know what to do with it. But I think this is, for me, I'd like to think positively. Without question, some of the bad actors will always be there, especially in the early parts of any industry, trying to take advantage of what I call information arbitrage. In other words, if you don't know what is happening over there, I'm going to tell you what's happening over there, and I'm going to fool you and take your money as you go over there to find out better. And so I think there are a lot of bad actors in the market that are taking full advantage of lack of awareness, lack of adoption, lack of understanding. And so that's why it calls to be mindful about how you operate in this market, both as an individual, as a startup, and of course, as a venture capital for a more a high net worth angel investor. Because I do believe in blockchain. I do believe in Web3. I do believe in crypto. But it's just, I'm glad that there are a lot of the bad actors that are being thrown up right now for who, and being shown up for what they truly are. So let's see what comes as a result, especially from the American side in terms of regulation. But it seems as if the Caribbean is open to other actors, right, Leroy? Now we're getting to what does this really mean for the Caribbean?
Oh yeah.
What's this really mean for the Caribbean? Now I have my own theory, and then y'all can poke holes or add to it, right? So I think maybe around the same time I tried to validate my timelines, but I didn't fully do so. When you hear of FTX made home in the Bahamas because of the DARE Act and because of the crypto-friendly business environment there. Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, made an announcement earlier this year that they were in talks with Binance of doing some sort of a partnership that would expose and give opportunities to the Bayesian population. We haven't heard anything in terms of the developments where that is concerned. So right now, in the Caribbean now, FTX is dead. Celsius also died, and that's out of Bermuda. But the Chinese are here.
Let's go.
Just
the part I was waiting for.
Couple of months, right? Just of the last couple of months, two things have happened. Now, I heard about OKX already through Dr. Gillian Bethel, who is one of the co-founders of Crypto Isle in Nassau. And that's where SiliconCaribe had our Future of Caribbean Money event last December. Now, I knew about OKX. So OKX becomes the second crypto exchange to open in crypto-friendly Bahamas. They announced this just this month. Then popped up again, where we said another Asian crypto exchange, Chinese-led crypto exchange called Weeby Global, is moving to the Caribbean. And the person behind this is a dude named Justin Sun, who is Chinese and is known for being, flashy types in the space. He has been trying to get UB Global to the Caribbean. So he said in an interview that it's either going to be Dominica or Panama, or Bahamas. But we're all thinking that it may be Dominica because he has a deal with the Dominican government to do a Tron token to help them to raise money and to promote their heritage and tourism product. Yeah, so you see that right now. So CZ from Binance announced that we want to do something in Barbados. Nothing fully yet, but I believe in another year, we'll probably hear something when things have died down with FTX. Then we have these two other Chinese-led crypto exchanges that one is heading to Bahamas, OKX, which is actually led by Dr. Gillian Bethel, co-owner of Crypto Isle, who also lived in Asia for around 10 years as a doctor. And then we now have another Chinese-led crypto exchange that is moving to the Caribbean. So I'm just saying, the Americans seem to have been bounced out and the Asians are nesting in the Caribbean.
Does that feel familiar?
No, man, I've never heard of those kind of developments happening in the Caribbean. Not once have I seen that not one time. No, this is all brand new. Never seen it before.
For me, I'm just saying that's really interesting.
But Ingrid, and what about your French Tron?
Well, Tron, led by Justin Sun. Justin Sun he was the owner of the Tron blockchain, and he still is the World Trade Organization ambassador for Grenada.
Grenada, right.
A Chinese man, WTO ambassador for Grenada. Very interesting.
But also, I know that I sent you this one when Tron started trying to lend FTX money to try to help them out. And again, it's very interesting the way how, and Caribbean governments, Ingrid, you know my spiel, Caribbean governments have to get very smart in terms of how we protect our customers. Yeah. And the reason why I asked Leroy the question, because I know even when, if I go back a couple of years ago, when Clico collapsed, part of the biggest collapse or part of the biggest impacted countries was Bahamas. And I know they were putting a lot of infrastructure around, making sure that they protected their citizens. And here we come again, nearly a decade, 10, 12 years later, we have FTX, and Bahamas was one of those who were really pushing ahead with the laws around the sandbox, around, being crypto friendly, etc. And so the question really lies around how do we make sure that we protect Ingrid, auntie, and she uncle on the corner who may not necessarily be impacted as much, but they have strong interest, because here's what, everybody is trying to find a way out of their current circumstances. And so therefore they see all these newfangled shiny things before them, and they may take a chance. Because one of the things that I've realized even in the Caribbean is that you have, everybody will try to be selling you, oh, you should get into Amway. And I'm talking, not necessarily own digital products, but this man want to sell you Amway or sell you something, or you should join this or join that. I've had friends who've been come to my house, hey, you should get involved in this and that. I'm like, okay, I'm not interested. How do we protect that small man who don't know about crypto, who don't know about, and you and I think we're similar in terms of blockchain and its purposes and its use cases, because, I've heard people was in Trinidad recently and somebody's like, hey, what about NFTs? And you should be doing this. I'm like, I do think it have use cases, but again, how am I protected? Where are Bored Apes now? And how many have been sold? And so we really have to make sure that, one of the things that we do on this program is about advocating for the consumer sometimes, but the real question is, how do we ensure that Caribbean governments are cognizant? Because you did say Barbados was quiet. Yeah, but what will that look like in a few months after FTX has died down? And will we make people accountable to protect the end consumer?
Leroy, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, so I think for me, the focus needs to be on the individual as opposed to the infrastructure. Let me explain what I mean by that. I mean, so my previous work, my prior experience in this space has been fundamentally centered around education and awareness. So I try to get the information directly to people, and I try to get it in a sense where it's easy, not only easy for them to understand, but easy for them to get enough of a grasp where they know, what question should I ask next? What should I look to next? What actually comes sequentially after this? How does this progress? Where are we going from here? Because this example alone, if this isn't big enough, this example alone states or just shows to me that no matter how you spin it, you cannot rely on a government. You cannot rely on a central authority. You have to, and that's at the core premise of crypto itself. It started with Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's primary things were two things. It was censorship resistance and self-reliance. It's being self-dependent. It's being completely in charge of yourself. It's self-sovereignty. That's the word I was looking for. So that self-sovereignty, or that core ethos in the space, builds out the necessary fundamentals that you have to navigate any part of this space. You don't have to be a crypto expert. You don't have to know how hashing algorithms work. You don't have to be able to explain how a blockchain is developed to know how it can work, what it can do, and how it can benefit you. when you have a higher base or a higher baseline of people that understand just how the stuff works, when they understand what it's supposed to do, then you don't have to rely so heavily on the government side. Now, that's not saying there shouldn't be government side. We definitely need more widespread education on both sides, on the individual and on the government side. It's absolutely necessary. But at the end of the day, it comes down to that individual being able to take accountability and responsibility for their actions. Yes, there needs to be some protection, but you have to understand going into it what it is you might need to be protected against. If you're just throwing money into FTX, anyone who is new to the space, throwing money into FTX, as far as they were concerned, they were putting money into an establishment that's accredited by the government. It was greenlit by the government, so it should have been safe.
Yeah. So for me, I just kind of want us to, you're right. There should be, without question, some sort of a general government oversight. Not to thwart innovation or to try to make markets that is pro certain actors or anything like that, but definitely should be some government guidelines. But you're right, there needs to be the individual who has to take responsibility in terms of understanding what they're getting into and know what their risk tolerance is. And this goes for anything: crypto, stocks, real estate, starting a business, the whole 9 yards, right? For me, you're right. That's what I'm hoping, that with FTX and all the light that is shining on FTX, for the individual or for other, investors, that they will now be more inspired to go and learn more about what is here right now, what is invariably will become a part of their lives moving forward. And so I am hoping that this is a call for awareness that will lead to more adoption. And when we talk about adoption across the region, I did a piece months ago around the top 8 Caribbean crypto countries. And these are just like the early adopters. Haiti is number 1, Jamaica is number 2, Puerto Rico, Trinidad, Suriname, the Bahamas, Belize, Barbados. Those are the top 8 Caribbean countries that have the most crypto users right now. And you compare that to like top countries around the world with the top crypto users. Number 1 is India. Number 2 is the United States. Number 3 is Nigeria. Now, there has to be some inherent value in crypto, while a lot of these people have gone in to test the early waters and to learn and to lose and to win along the way. So for me, I gave that information around the chess game that may be playing between America and the Chinese. It goes to top levels in terms of economics and using, those two superpowers in the world using soft power to, engender themselves, into certain markets. And the Chinese, because of course, Justin Sun came knocking in Jamaica to see what could happen for his Tron blockchain and get involved with that. Nothing has come of it yet because, but I'm definitely tracking it like crazy. So for me, as we wrapped up this section, FTX has happened. A lot of contagion and fallout is still unfolding 1 week later. Without question, I believe that there will be people who are going to be in short pants and in jail, only for
orange jumpsuits.
Example of, they're going to say it again.
Orange jumpsuits.
Orange jumpsuits, right? Because this was criminal. Without question, this was definitely criminal. And so we'll see as things unfold. Maybe we'll be talking about it in the next podcast. But then people need to become aware of maybe the chess game that is happening between American-run businesses in the space. 2 of the American-led, leading big businesses in the crypto space have died. FTX out of Bahamas, Celsius out of Bermuda. And we have Binance that has been courting Barbados for a while. We now have OKX that have made themselves resident in the Bahamas, and we'll see where UB Global goes, whether they go to Dominica or to the Bahamas as well. So we have the Americans who have flamed out, but the Chinese are robust and making themselves very present in the Caribbean. But at the end of the day, awareness of the opportunity and also the pitfalls, I think, need to be the message that we leave with the people who are listening to This Week in Caribbean Tech. So we can't, because if we're to keep going on this, we'd be there for 2 hours, because there's a lot of shit that is being unveiled. Every single day, there is something else, to the point where it's worse than almost like watching Elon Musk try to make something out of Twitter.
You're funny. Oh my.
I ain't kidding, man. I ain't kidding. Anyway, let's move on to the next topic. And the next topic has to do with digital remittances. And it's interesting that digital remittances is a very interesting thing. Now, the news out of this is that Jamaica's largest commercial bank, NCB, the National Commercial Bank, which is owned by billionaire Michael E. Chin, got a government license to go after what they see as the Jamaican remittance market, which is worth $3.3 billion US. And they're going after this market with their new fintech startup, which is a digital wallet called Link. So they got a remittance license. Okay. That's going to be interesting. Let's see how. So I went and asked some information, because I know a couple of people there. And so by the next podcast, I'm going to get some details in terms of how is this digital remittance thing going to work with the Link app. What exactly, what platform will they be using? Will they be using blockchain? Will they be using other existing platforms, MoneyGram, Western Union, whatever it is, to make those things happen? But at the same time, crypto remittances right now has been the third fastest growing way that digital remittances are actually been happening for the last couple of years. Of course, Western Union still is a big kahuna in the pond. They're number one. But crypto remittances by a number of startups across the world have been really kind of making an inroads into digital remittances. Why? It's faster, it's cheaper, and it's definitely more convenient. Typically, especially in the Caribbean, digital remittances will charge 5.6% of whatever is being sent. With digital remittances or crypto remittances, it's down to as little as 2%. Funny enough, I was reading and I came across this thing where the SDG, what do you call it now, targets for I think 2030 is to get the cost of remittances down from 5.6 to at least 3%, so that most of the money retains with the people who are sending it and the families who need it, and not the families who need it and receive it, and not it being simply a big boy girl game where they're taking the largest of the money. But what are your thoughts around digital remittances in terms of NCB doing it, and just generally as we're talking about crypto remittances? Do you know anything about that, Leroy?
I'm not too familiar on the other aspects of it outside of the crypto space. I know crypto remittances, as you said, have been largely on the rise as more people start to see the utility, the ease of use, the ease of access. The main problem of it being the on and off ramps, where people actually convert the crypto back to their native fiat currency. But no, I'm definitely all for it. I would love to see how this plays out, how it develops. You said it was in Jamaica, right?
Yes.
I haven't seen recently, but what has the development of Jamdex been like recently? Since that,
the uptake has been slow and low. And we haven't gotten any recent reports about it, but they said that they're giving Jamdex a window of adoption, because there has to be more awareness around it. But thank you for saying that. I'm going to go find exactly the latest figures, but based on what I checked on a couple of months ago, it was still low and slow. But of course, the government has still trying to hammer it and say, hey, this is the way that we need to go. So let's see if the remittances and NCB, being the largest bank in Jamaica, doing remittances this way will help to foster the adoption of Jamdex in the country. Maybe that's part of the ploy there as well. So we'll see what happens. Any insights or comments, Daniel?
You know, this is something that even when I was in telecoms, that I thought that there is a large opportunity here to, number one, really reduce the cost for remittances. So when you said that, even initially, I didn't realize it was a development goal to get to that number. But I do think that it again, for the consumer, to me, it augurs well. I do think that because NCB does have the largest footprint, especially in Jamaica, it gives them the opportunity. But I think that, it would all come down to messaging, and it would all come down to what people think are the cost benefits. Because I know Grace Kennedy is like the largest, between MoneyGram and Grace Kennedy, I think they're partnered. So the way how that works, and then driving that cost down. But in the region, the amount of money that is sent, especially when we start looking at Jamaican diaspora sending back home, that's billions of dollars. So I guess the next move now is on to see how Grace Kennedy reacts, and then what they actually do in the space from a competitive positioning to really try to empower. Because what we have understood, I mean, if we go back to even telecom days, there's a bunch of money that is made off of Caribbean consumers, and we prop up a lot of these companies.
Yes.
And only when we have competition do we see costs. So we talk about cable and wireless, and when Digicel came in and how that drove the cost down. But ultimately, I think that this is a win for consumers. So I guess to see how adoption evolves is going to be really, the eye opener and the opportunity that is there for links to dominate the market.
Yeah, you see, again, you're correct. It's going to be interesting to see how Grace Kennedy, which does MoneyGram, and I think VMBS does MoneyGram as well, but Grace Kennedy owns the largest amount of remittance outlets across Jamaica. And so they've had a digital wallet system for a while, but it's not really been pumped up or not being used a lot. And they said that it was because there was a lack of awareness, there's lack of digital not literacy in terms of using it. I believe that is not the case, but I don't have the data. I just think that when it comes to money and people and Jamaicans getting money, or just Caribbean people getting money, or Black people getting money, if it's going to make them money, they'll find a way to know how it works. Punto final. This is why I keep saying that let's just see in terms of Grace Kennedy and how they respond, but also Digicel. Digicel partnered with Paymaster, and Paymaster is a bill payment network across Jamaica. They were bought by Digicel. Of course, Digicel is the largest, I think still largest telecom company across the region. They pretty much have been using digital money called credit or airtime since they've been in business. The mere fact that you can actually move money and send airtime or credit to each other's phone, that's a form of digital money.
Yep.
They actually have a digital wallet out called MyCash, which they have launched primarily in Haiti right now because Link kind of beat them to the market in terms of the big scenario. So between Digicel and Paymaster, Grace Kennedy, and NCB with the Link app, we're going to see exactly who will thrive and do well in the digital remittance space. But at the end of the day, as you said, I really hope that it is the consumer that wins, because it really would make very little sense if it's digital remittances, but the fees are still high. It is still inconvenient to get, and it still takes days or longer than 15 minutes or an hour for them to get the remittances so they can actually use it. So for me, time will tell. It's going to be interesting. It's interesting. Let's see if in any way, shape, or form blockchain comes to play in any of these, how these players navigate this play for sure. Let me ask Leroy, since Bahamas has the DARE Act. Wouldn't it be easy then to do crypto remittances in that jurisdiction?
Theoretically, yes, it should be easier. Theoretically, it should be easier. Because the infrastructure for that off-ramp, because it's easy, anyone in the world could receive Bitcoin, anyone could receive Ether, they could even receive Tron if they wanted to. I don't know why they would want that, but if they wanted to, they could receive Tron. But the issue what a lot of countries have is that off-ramp. It's that way to actually convert that crypto or the Bitcoin into their local currency. With the Bahamas having the DARE Act and having these businesses firmly established as registered digital assets businesses, we now have an avenue for people to safely, or at least within an insured environment, be able to have these off-ramps, thus making it easier for people to receive. I could get Bitcoin from anywhere in the world. I could work remotely. I could work as a digital artist, a graphic designer, a content creator, whatever. And I could have clients anywhere in the world pay me in Bitcoin or whatever token. And then I would be able to go to whatever the local digital assets business is, set up an account with them, whatever KYC, AML needs to be set up. And then I should be able to convert that to Bahamian dollars or even the sand dollar, which they're really trying to implement as well. So theoretically, yes, it should be easier for it to happen. We just have yet to really see it be fully fleshed out, I would say.
Yeah.
And that, going back to the education, everything for me ties back to the education.
Right.
Because how I see it, the more educated people are, or the more self-aware they become with how this stuff works and what it can do, what it should do, that itself is an innovation driver. Because if you know what works, if you know how it works, not the details, but you don't have to know how Wi-Fi works to get Wi-Fi to work. But if you know how to use this technology, and then you see what's being presented to you, you can say, I know that there's better. I know that I can do this. And when you have a market moving towards what they know works, the companies have to adapt.
Yeah. So when we say education, though, Leroy, what exactly are you meaning? You're talking about?
I mean, when I say education, I'm talking about that fundamental understanding of this digital asset space, specifically crypto, but it's larger than crypto. Crypto is
how do we educate them? What do you think? If you've been in this era, been this era for a little while, what have you seen been the best way to get people aware and adopting?
Realistically, the best and most effective way that I've seen has been localized groups coming together. So you have local meetups, you have local groups, you have groups of activists, of enthusiasts, just generally meeting and conversing with others in the space, others that are interested in this technology, others that are looking towards how it's going to be developed, how it's being fleshed out, and just having those conversations alone. Because with the internet being what it is, it's easy to get information, but it's also easy to get misinformation.
True. Yeah.
And being a newer person in the space, there's no way for you to be able to tell the difference between, say, Andreas Antonopoulos and Gary Vee. There's no way to really be able to differentiate between who actually has that core, that fundamental understanding of how this stuff works, and who's just marketing, who just sounds good, you know? So I feel that the most effective, and it's definitely slower. It's definitely not ideal. But in terms of getting genuine information and learning how this stuff works, learning how to safely navigate the space yourself, I found that the absolute best has been meeting with others and conversing with others in the space, local groups. If you can, get out, get off your island, leave your state, your country, wherever you are, go to one of those international meetups. So then you're exposed to newer ideas. But even if that's not on the table, just meeting with people locally there's huge benefits to having those conversations once a week.
Yeah, I agree. For the community level, from the ground up, for people who are trusted and who are doing the thing themselves and will have the patience and the time to share with you in different ways. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you where that is concerned. How would you like to know? How would you like to learn about more about crypto, Daniel?
No, I think that all the ways that Leroy outlined really resonates and it makes sense. I think it starts with a localized understanding. And also remember, I live in the crypto in the capital of crypto, so I'm all up to speed, Ingrid. You didn't know
Miami,
that?
whatever. Okay, Miami is not the capital of crypto. What?
The mayor gets paid in Bitcoin. You know, we're the capital of capital, man. So, but on a serious note, I do think that what Leroy said really makes sense. And I think that, you know, while Leroy said it would take a bit longer, I do think that though that is where the foundational aspects of making sure that people understand come into play. So to me, and even some of the initiatives that Caribbean governments have taken, you know, what I do like, you know, in what was said is that they actually have been backing, despite, you know, slow uptake and slow adoption, they have continued to back. And that also creates a feeling of trust, because even though I know it's not taking off at 100%, but here's what, you'll continue to back it year after year. Then eventually those late adopters, those middle adopters eventually would say, hey, you know what? This has been around a while. It's survived 4 or 5 years. Okay, now I can take my money and kind of put into it because I do realize it has some long-term residual value. So I do think that, you know, what Leroy said is from a marketing point of view is correct 100% on the button for me.
Yeah. All right, well, let's see what happens over the next couple of years. Let's hopefully that we see that there is a lot more education initiatives from the ground up and across different sectors across the Caribbean for sure. Because this is not something that we have a choice in the matter. This is something that is now part of the future of money and will be the future of Caribbean money. You see what I did there? I know, yeah. But the event is coming up in February. But but seriously, and that's one of the reasons why we did Future of Caribbean Money, because we have to show people the fact that these things are happening now in the region around the world, and they have no choice but to understand so that they can take full advantage of that. So yeah. All right. So as we wrap up on our last item for today, we're back. We're talking about your fellow Trini, Danielle. So this Caribbean woman has the largest LinkedIn following of anyone else in the region. Her name is Bridget Hyacinth. She's a best-selling author, an international keynote speaker on leadership, management, HR, digital transformation, and AI. She's been ranked as the top 100 HR influencers for like 4 years straight. She's in one of the top 100 most influential people of African descent under 40. And she's also one of the top 75 remote work influencers. Now, when I saw this, was it you who told me about her, or was it somebody else who told me about her? And I went looking up for her, and I was like, what? And she's Trini. No, I think it was Katia Francis from Digital Jamaica who showed me. And I went and looked up on her thing. And here's what I noticed about her. She leveraged LinkedIn, which is, of course, the #1 platform for business professionals, and the perfect B2B marketplace for anybody who's looking to build a career or build a business and get quality leads and to assert their thought leadership and their influence as well. She was very, very diligent about 4 things. She posted, her content multiple times a week, whether it was articles or shorts or quotes or videos. Secondly, she engaged with her audience through comments. Third, she had what I call a massive, I've never seen somebody do like this before, a massive endorsement strategy. So for whatever topic that she's known for, want to be known for, whatever in the industry sector that she's aligned with, she has multiple endorsements. I don't mean like 1 or 2, I'm talking about like dozens. And she's also very, very selective about the communities that she joins and engages that. Now, how many of you truly leverage your LinkedIn profile and that marketplace? Is it? Yeah. Leroy, you're shaking your head like, no,
Not
boy.
even close. Not on that level. No, that's amazing. And like being working in this space, working independently, you learn that LinkedIn is the number one space for business professionals. It's the number one business social media platform. But you don't find many people being able to not just use the platform, not just like make posts or have conversations, but to fully leverage it to expand their brand, to expand their business, to expand their network. It's remarkable. I mean, that's Caribbean excellence. But yeah,
4.3 million
I'm
people follow her on LinkedIn.
I'm not even remotely close to that.
Like
But no, that's amazing.
that's almost like Jamaica and the entire population of Jamaica and Trinidad that follows her on LinkedIn. I'm like, what do you ask, right? Is it? But I know, Daniel, you are very good with your following. You have we have 15,000 people following you on LinkedIn. You have your audience there that deeply engaged.
Something like that. It's nowhere near 4.3, but I do know of Bridget, and I do know some of the things that, but what I think you also needed to add to that is that she was popular somewhere else. It was either Facebook or somewhere else. She was also popular and I think that she was able to migrate that popularity. She understood what the strategy and basically migrated it over to LinkedIn, because I do remember when I followed her on LinkedIn, she was nowhere near even 100, maybe it was near like 100,000, but she was nowhere near that. So I think that even also in the pandemic, that number just ballooned. But yeah, kudos to her and being able to pull that off. I'd like to understand though just how she's been using that because she does post stuff, but and some of it is taught leadership, but I don't know in terms of how that's leveraged from a business standpoint. So even from we need to have a conversation with her. I'd love to sit down and talk with her, basically interview her to understand, okay, so you've done this and this.
Come on our show. We're going to invite you, send an official invitation on LinkedIn to come and join us on This Week in Caribbean Tech. So you can talk to our Caribbean people and say, listen, here's your top 5 things that you must be doing consistently to leverage, LinkedIn for career and business.
But I think that, and she stands out from a Caribbean point of view, because I don't know how many Caribbean people actually are really actively engaging using LinkedIn. And I think that is where she stands out. So yeah, those are just some of the bullet points to me as they popped out.
Yeah, you're talking about Caribbean people on LinkedIn. They're the top 5 countries on LinkedIn, including Jamaica, Trinidad. Basically numbers around 3.7 million people within the top 5 Caribbean countries that are actually on LinkedIn. So it's going to be interesting to see how what they can learn and what are they really using it. So we'll see. We're gonna try and have on Bridget to see.
And you can use it like Facebook where we boosting for likes, right? I mean, you could, but
you can. It's part of the strategy, because I'm sure
it is.
Let's see if she was organic or organic plus paid. Ain't nothing wrong with paying. Paying is just buying awareness. That's all. It's just sort of a shot in the game.
No, but what I'm saying that I know for a lot of Caribbean businesses, what they did was just plow money into Facebook and just hope to get likes and engagement. But in LinkedIn, that's not how it works. You could put out something, people can, but you have to be relevant, and so that relevance conversation has to be part of the strategy.
For sure. And we're ending now with information about 2 events, and the first is happening this Friday, November 18th. Caribbean businesses are going to be heading to the metaverse. They're going to learn about this $5 trillion opportunity. It's an event that is being put on by Caribbean economist Mala Dukran, And let me open this up here because we endorsed this event. SiliconCaribe endorsed this event. And so, say it again.
The metaverse.
The metaverse. So basically what Marla is saying is that, listen, she cares about the fact that she wants to put this opportunity in people's hands to be early adopters. She believes that the trends of the future can start right here in the region. I'm with her with that. So she's going to deliver her annual economic outlook for 2023 in this metaverse event. But also there's going to be like a lineup of, nine speakers from 5 countries that's going to be talking about things around climate tech, the tech entrepreneurial ecosystem, what to expect in terms of inflation, economics, and that kind of a thing. So, and believe it or not, of course, she may be based in Bahamas right now, in the Barbados right now, but she's a Trinidadian, so it wouldn't be a thing if they didn't have some soca. So there'll be a live concert in the metaverse by 3 Canal, the Trinidadian Rhapsody Band. So we have endorsed this event. So if you want to go to understand what this potential that the metaverse holds for Caribbean businesses and for businesses generally, because McKinsey has put out a report that by 2030, the metaverse will be generating around $2.5 trillion in value globally. If you want to actually learn more about the metaverse and its potential business opportunities for your Caribbean business, then go to SiliconCaribe.com. In fact, go to marladukaran.com/metaverse. And there's limited seating, but use our code SC for SiliconCaribe, SC, the number 10, SC10, and get 10% off your ticket. So you can go to SiliconCaribe.com, see our article there about this metaverse event that is happening this Friday, November the 18th. Click on the link and go buy your ticket and get 10% off using our SC10 code. So yeah, so there's that. And then the last event I need to tell you about is ours. We had put on our first Future of Caribbean Money conference December last year. It was December, and we held it in the Bahamas because, of course, Crypto Isle at the time was opening, and we know that Bahamas was going to be doing some interesting things. And so this year we had 300 people participating from 22 countries. We had 40 speakers, and the response was great. We decided to shift and do the event not just annually but twice a year, more as a trend forum, a half-day trend forum. So we're having our next Future of Caribbean Money Trend Forum on Wednesday, February the 1st, 2023. And it'll be all about the outlook for the year, trends, and startups. And we're focusing on e-commerce, digital payments, Web3, and remittances. So if you want to know what is happening with that as we flow out more information around that, stay tuned by signing up for the This Week in Caribbean Tech newsletter at SiliconCaribe.com. And of course, stay tuned here to This Week in Caribbean Tech. So look, guys, I ate that, we're done. It's I have an event to go to. Daniel has to go deal with his family. And Leroy, where exactly are you right now in the world?
So right now I'm living in Maryland, not too far, not too far from now. So I never stray too far. But yeah, working remotely here as a writer, research analyst. But yeah, I still try to make my way home every now and again. I definitely have to come to the next Future Caribbean Money event. I was supposed to come last year, but I couldn't make it. But I definitely got to catch this one. So I marked that date down.
Yes, we will definitely keep you posted for that. So any last fighting words from anybody? And before we wrap up and say toodle pips?
I just want to thank Leroy for coming on and educating us about, the education that we need, basically. And really kind of shining a light about what is going on from the perspective of, FTX and, what is happening. I think it's great. And I think it continues to show that while we can't push the the levels of innovation, we need to make sure that while we innovate, we educate, one can't happen without the other. So thanks, Derek, for coming on and really continuing to convey that message to us.
All right, sounds good. And that's it, folks. That's it for this episode of This Week in Caribbean Tech from SiliconCaribe. If you've got something of value, comment below, click that link, like it, share it, be generous with with your friends and colleagues, and tell them about This Week in Caribbean Tech podcast. That will help us to grow. And remember that you can watch us on SiliconCaribe TV channel on YouTube, and you can listen to us across 9 podcast platforms in audio format on Google Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, and other major platforms. And of course, you're going to see us back here next week, Friday, with another episode of This Week in Caribbean Tech. My name is Ingrid Riley.
I'm Daniel Smith.
It's a pause.
I was wondering if I was supposed to do something, because I was like, hold on, I missed my line.
No, man.
I love messing with Ingrid sometimes, so
He does do that. But anyway, you heard from him. Thank you so much, Leroy Forbes, for joining us. Daniel Smith, another podcast on the books. Take it easy, fellas. Take it easy, everybody.
Right,
See you
bye-bye.
next week, Friday.
All right, thanks. Take care, y'all.
Yeah.